Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a look at an absolutely fascinating and profoundly impactful role, the rehabilitation counselor. But we're not just looking at them in a clinical setting. We're talking about them as real-life bridge builders. You see, in vocational rehabilitation, getting a job is almost never a solo journey. It takes serious teamwork, counselors, clients, employers, and the whole community coming together. Rehab counselors do so much more than just prep a client for an interview. They are literally paving the way for workplace inclusion, accessibility, and long-term success. So if you've ever wondered how we actually bridge the gap between talented folks with disabilities or mental health conditions and the employers who absolutely need them, well, you're in exactly the right place.
Okay, let's dive into our roadmap for today. We'll be covering an introduction to job development, how to engage community employers, essential job development skills, accommodations and accessibility, rehab counseling competencies, and finally, a real-world case study following Maria's journey.
Section 1. Intro to Job Development. Let's talk about creating opportunities.
At its core, job development is all about intentionally creating and finding employment opportunities that perfectly match a client's unique strengths, interests, and support needs. What's kind of wild about this philosophy is how different it is from traditional job placement. Traditional placement usually focuses on one thing: speed. It's just about getting a person into the very first available job, right? But rehabilitation counseling, it's entirely client-centered. Instead of rushing to check a box, rehab counselors actually take the time to deeply understand a client's vocational interests. They meticulously assess their strengths and any barriers they might face. Because the ultimate goal here isn't just to snag a job, it's to secure long-term success and genuine community participation.
But to make those perfect matches happen, counselors absolutely cannot just sit behind a desk. That brings us to Section 2, Engaging Community Employers.
Engaging employers is a highly proactive process. We're talking boots on the ground. Counselors are constantly networking with local businesses, showing up at community events, and conducting targeted outreach. But honestly, their most critical strategy is educating employers on inclusion. A lot of employers out there simply don't know much about disability accommodations or mental health conditions. By stepping up as educators, counselors directly dismantle misconceptions and chip away at the stigma surrounding disabilities. They are quite literally paving the way for inclusive hiring. Now listen to this fact because it is a real game changer. Many workplace accommodations are low cost, simple to implement, and beneficial for employee retention and productivity. It surprises so many people, but inclusion isn't just a legal obligation or, just a nice thing to do. It is actually a massive win-win for business. By sharing accurate information, counselors help employers realize that a supportive environment makes their whole team more productive and loyal. So, how do they actually pull this off day to day? Let's get into Section 3, Essential Job Development Skills. The absolute foundation of a counselor's toolkit is vocational assessment. Think of it like this: before you can find the right job, you need a highly detailed map of the person. This means systematically figuring out a client's strengths, their genuine interests, their inherent abilities, and what kind of support they need to thrive. To build this solid employment plan, counselors use a really dynamic mix of deep clinical interviews, specialized career assessments, and hands-on vocational exploration. They figure out exactly what the client brings to the table.
Once you have that detailed map, it's time for job matching. This means scanning the labor market to find opportunities that fit like a glove with all those traits we just assessed: the interests, skills, abilities, values, and support needs. And why does this precision matter so much? Because effective matching is the secret sauce. It directly leads to better job satisfaction, higher confidence at work, smoother adjustment periods, and ultimately, long-term success.
Of course, finding the perfect match is only half the battle. The client still has to actually win the job. That's where job search and soft skills prep comes in. Counselors walk clients through the nitty-gritty of resume development and applications, but they go way deeper than that. They actively teach soft skills like workplace communication, teamwork, and adaptability. And when it comes to interview prep, counselors do absolutely vital work helping clients manage their nerves, boost their confidence, and practice responses to tough questions. This is incredibly crucial for clients who might be navigating trauma or severe social anxiety.
And once the client lands the job, well, a whole new phase of support begins. Section 4, Accommodations and Accessibility. To understand how this works in the United States, we have to look at the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990.
the ADA. This landmark civil rights law firmly prohibits discrimination against individuals with disabilities and mandates equal access to employment. But the key part here is that it requires employers to provide reasonable accommodations. These are simply adjustments or modifications that allow someone to successfully perform the essential functions of their job.
And this brilliantly illustrates our point. In the real world, reasonable accommodations are often incredibly practical, everyday adjustments. We're talking about things like flexible scheduling, modified training procedures, or maybe using assistive technology. Sometimes it's just providing a quiet workspace, offering written instructions instead of just verbal ones, or allowing remote work. For individuals with mental health conditions, these specific kinds of tweaks can be an absolute lifesaver for managing stress, improving concentration, and handling attendance needs.
Now, if you take away nothing else from this section, remember this: accommodations are completely individualized. What works brilliantly for one client might not work at all for another. Counselors act as expert facilitators here. They collaborate closely with the client, helping them figure out if they want to disclose a disability and how to voice their needs. And they work with the employer to find unique, customized solutions that support both the employee's success and overall workplace productivity.
As you can imagine, pulling all of this off requires a high degree of professional skill. That brings us to Section 5, Rehab Counseling Competencies.
Certified rehabilitation counselors really have to master a delicate dual role. On one hand, they need to nail those core competencies, clinical and practical skills like conducting vocational assessments, driving career development, consulting with employers, and job placement. But at the exact same time, they are responsible for some major advocacy goals. They're expected to fiercely advocate for accessibility, push for equitable hiring practices, and fight workplace stigma. It is a constant, dynamic balance of empowering the individual client while pushing for real, systemic change within the community.
Okay, let's pull all of this theory down to earth and see what it actually looks like in practice. Section 6, Case Study, Maria's Journey.
Meet Maria. Maria experiences generalized anxiety disorder. She's been out of the workforce for 2 years, and while she is highly motivated and deeply wants to return to work, she is incredibly nervous about interviews. She's honestly terrified about how she'll manage her anxiety in a fast-paced setting, so she's facing some complex, intertwined barriers.
So here are the chronological steps her rehabilitation counselor takes to help her build that bridge to employment. First, they absolutely do not just throw her into job boards. They sit down and carefully identify Maria's strengths and career interests to make sure they're targeting the right match. Step 2, they update her resume to highlight her capabilities. Step 3, they practice interview skills specifically designed to help her navigate those nerves. And finally, Step 4, the counselor provides clinical emotional support, helping Maria develop concrete coping strategies for managing her anxiety on the job. It's this perfect blend of practical preparation and vital emotional support.
Once Maria is ready and actually secures a role with an employer who values inclusion, the counselor steps in to help arrange specific accommodations. For Maria, these turned out to be incredibly simple, low-cost adjustments. They set up flexible scheduling to help her manage high-anxiety mornings, written task instructions so she doesn't have to rely purely on memory when she's stressed, and gradual onboarding support to ease her into the new environment. These seemingly small changes are literally what makes the difference between Maria struggling and Maria absolutely thriving in her new role.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today, and leaves us with one incredibly important question to ponder. How will you build bridges to inclusive employment? Whether you're an employer, a future counselor, or simply a community member, you now have the knowledge to understand what true, effective job development looks like. I challenge you to take what you've learned today and use it to help destigmatize disabilities and mental health conditions in your own workplaces and communities. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this fascinating topic. Keep learning, keep building those bridges, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.